Last night, I went to the gym and discovered my bike had been stolen. 2 hours later and a lengthy viewing of security tapes, I was on the way to the police station and remembered I had walked there. In what ways has your scumbag brain screwed you over recently? Once I made chicken soup, simmered the carcass for hours with lots of vegetables. Then, when it was all nice and tasty, I grabbed a colander and poured all the liquid down the sink. I just stood there for about 5 minutes, staring at the bones, trying to remember what the next step in soup making was. This is one of my favorite stories in the whole thread. What a hilarious disappointment. Oh man, it was just this awful moment when you realize you were in autopilot. If you count how often I drain pasta/rice/vegetables, it's easy to understand how it becomes a total reflex. And then my brain just couldn't snap out of it and realize what I had done. I just looked at the nicely boiled bones and thought, now what? I recently went to a gas station near my apartment with the intention of buying gas. It was a rare occasion, as I actually had cash. I normally pay for everything on debit. I walked up to the station and gave the man $10. I then proceeded to walk back to my car, get inside, and drive away. It was about 5 minutes later, on the highway, that I realized that I hadn't actually pumped any gas. I was too ashamed to go back. Went to the bank and tried to make a deposit. Teller in training says she can't find my account. I begin to get irritated. I always seem to get the new guy. I ask her to search by my name. Still nothing. Then I realize I'm at the wrong bank. My wife was a teller at Wells Fargo. You have no idea how often this happens. I once forgot to take out my contacts before going to bed. I woke up, put on my glasses as usual, and freaked the fuck out because everything was blurry. Tried cleaning my glasses, nothing would help. Spent about 5 minutes freaking out, thinking I was going blind or something. I did this last night. I wanted to swap contacts for glasses because my eyes were getting tired. Put glasses on and got mad blurry vision, freaked out and diagnosed myself with a brain tumor. You guys are so pessimistic. My usual reaction is of joy, thinking that my eyes have miraculously become 20/20 again. It is so heartbreaking when I realize my contacts are still on. The other day I was sweeping out a freezer at work, and when I went to leave, I realized I was locked in there. I sat in there for 10 minutes trying to pull open the door until someone walked by. I banged on the glass until he opened the door for me. That was when I discovered the freezer door was a push, not a pull. I did that the other week, but it was a toilet at a bookstore. I pushed the door and it was locked, so I assumed it was one of those disabled toilets where there is just one toilet inside. 5 minutes of waiting outside, I had started a queue behind me of men, some doing the same thing as me and some just assuming I must know if it is occupied, so did not even try the door. After about 7 minutes of waiting, a man walks out of the toilet. I grab the door and walk inside. The toilet is huge with about 15 cubicles and 20 urinals. I felt like such a tit. I had to pull the door, not push it. Some of the guys were not happy, others just quietly joined me in shame. I make eggs most mornings. I usually like to crack them near the garbage so I can throw the shells away easily. One day my brain thought it would be funny to crack my eggs into the garbage and then keep the shells. LOL, did something like this the other day, making some good old Kraft mac and cheese, when after boiling the water my brain decided I wanted to skip some steps and eat now. Before straining out the water, I dumped the cheese packet into the mac and cheese pan filled with hot water, turning it into some yellow nasty cheese-colored water. Needless to say, it was the shittiest mac and cheese I had ever made. I was watching TV but felt like a drink, so I got up and walked with the remote to the fridge. I looked in the fridge and saw a bottle of milk that I wanted, so I placed the remote in the fridge, closed the door, and walked back to the television. When I got back in the living room, I had the feeling something was off, and remembered I didn't drink any milk yet. So I turned around, opened the fridge, took a big sip of milk straight from the bottle, and placed the bottle back next to the remote. I go back to sit on the couch. Half an hour later the show's over and I want to change the channel, but I can't find my remote. I looked under all the cushions of the couch and chairs. I scoured through every last inch of the living room before giving up and switching channels manually. I only found out where I left the remote when my brother opened the fridge to make himself a sandwich. Thank God for sandwiches. So tasty and helps find remotes. What can't sandwiches do? I do not like Del Taco, but I was in California on business. There was one right next to my hotel, and I was very tired and very hungry. Long line at the drive-in, inches forward slowly, and I'm trying not to fall asleep in my car. I pay for my meal, collect the food, and drive off before realizing that I never ordered. I had driven right by the order box and paid for/collected the meal of whoever was behind me in line. This is my favorite. That is so epic. You got a surprise meal. Was it good? You should have taken over that person's life, gone home to their shitty wife, had passionless sex, and watched all their pre-programmed DVR shows. It was Del Taco, so it wasn't good, but it was probably what I would have ordered and was about what I expected to pay, which is why I didn't notice until I was driving away. As for the rest of your plan, I wish I'd thought of that. College, 2008, I had a very nice bike stolen from my backyard. It was chained and U-bolted to a support beam and they cut the support beam to get it. I was walking on campus one day and saw my frame, but it was painted differently and the components were changed. I ran across this field and jumped right in front of the guy riding it. I stopped the bike by grabbing the handlebars head-on and standing right in front. Luckily, the guy was riding fairly slow. He looked terrified as I held the bike and him and inspected it to see if it was mine. He says, "What the hell am?" and I quickly cut him off. "I think you stole my bike, but I hope you didn't." Was far more intimidating than this skinny dude, so he was terrified. After about 20s, I realized it wasn't my frame and I apologized. I said, "Sorry dude, I thought this was my bike and someone wrecked my house when they stole it from me." He responds, "Fuck, I'm just happy you didn't beat me up." I felt terrible. I had to post a letter and figured I could do it and take the dog for a walk at the same time. I got to the door, then realized, shit, I forgot the letter. So I turned around, went back to get it, and then chose a song to listen to on my phone as I'm walking. I'm walking for about 10 minutes before I realize I never actually picked the envelope up despite having already forgotten it and gone back for it once before. I still managed to forget it, even though I was literally standing right next to it. So I walked back and got it and actually picked it up that time. The dog was pretty freaking confused. Once, I lost my car keys. Couldn't, for the life of me, find them. Started to panic, got my family and my friend who was with me to look all over the house. Had to use my spares to get around, but the set of keys I lost had my padlock keys on them too. Anyway, the next day, I found them in the freezer. Had to use a hairdryer to unstick them from the shelf. I have no idea why I put them in the freezer. During my freshman year in college, I lost my car keys for 2 weeks. I had to get my parents to send me a spare so that I could use the car. I eventually gave up looking for them and was going to call the school to get replacement keys for my dorm room and mailbox, etc. Then my friend decides to do the dishes for the first time in a month, and my keys are at the bottom of the sink. Not me, but it happened to my uncle. He goes to the cinemas with his wife and parks his car in a multi-level car park. Returns to the car park after the movie, but he cannot locate his car. He searches all over but has no luck. Gets home by taxi and calls up the police to report his stolen car. Police investigation starts, and insurance process begins as well. 2 weeks go by, and by now he has a courtesy car given from the insurance company. A day before his payout is due, he receives a phone call from the police saying that the mall security reported a car that has been parked in the same location for 3 weeks, which turns out to be his car. The bad part is that when he is on the way to return the insurance car, he ends up T-boning another car at an intersection. My uncle is found at fault for the accident, and the insurance car is a write-off. Ends up costing him $1,850 Australian dollars in excess for the written-off car. Scumbag brain. I'm on exam break and preparing for several upcoming big, scary exams. I'd been sitting at my desk for about 6 hours straight and decided to go out for a walk to clear my head. 15 minutes out, I started freaking out because I realized I hadn't saved my work before leaving the house, so I immediately turned around and headed home to save it. Because, you know, the one time you don't, there's a power surge. I was nearly home when it dawned on me I'd been handwriting my notes. Then you get home, and the pen is out of ink. Ayah! The day after I got my car license, instead of my father dropping me off at university like usual, I drove there myself. At the end of my long, hard day, I walked down to the bus stop and caught a bus home, the whole time feeling as though I had forgotten something. Eventually, I get home and am met with my father asking, "Why'd you park out on the road and not in the driveway? Are you planning on going out?" My father ended up having to drop me back off at the university car park. I felt like the biggest. One time there was $100 missing out of my bank account. I went to the bank to see what happened and they told me when and where it was taken out of my account. I couldn't remember going to that ATM as it was on the other side of town and I rarely went there. The lady at the bank kept grilling me about who I let access my card and kept insinuating that I gave my PIN to someone. I got angry and insisted that it was stolen or there was a bank error. She finally agreed to open up an investigation, saying that they have cameras at all ATMs and they would find out. But if it turned out to be legit, then I would be held accountable for the costs of investigations. When I was on my way home from the bank, I remembered when I took that money out. I felt like such an asshole and I was too embarrassed to go back. I waited until after the bank closed and left a voicemail explaining that I figured it out and never went back to that branch again. Man, in the future just be chill with people who are there to help you. They undeservedly get shit all day long and they are usually cool and trying to fix your errors and mistakes. Not you specifically, but you. Thank you very much for watching. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel that would not miss the daily videos, as well as click on the video. Have a nice day. Good luck to all.